only build a wall, but beneath the ground and in the air. We do internal enforcement. But he said the focus has to be on criminal aliens. We just had a conversation about law enforcement. We just had a conversation about the violence that's besetting our cities. The reality is that there's heartbreak and tragedy that has struck American families because people that came into this country illegally are now involved in criminal enterprise and activity, and we don't have the resources or the will to deport them systematically. Donald Trump has said we're going to move those people out. People have overstayed their visas. We're going to enforce the law of this country. We're going to strengthen immigrations and customs enforcements with more resources and more personnel to be able to do that. And then Donald Trump has made it clear, once we've done all of those things, that we're going to reform the immigration system that we have where people can come into this country. Removing criminal aliens, upholding the law, and then, Senator, I'll work with you when you go back to the Senate. I promise you, we'll work with you to reform the immigration system.
I look forward to whatever capacity clear that he's trying to fuzz up what Donald Trump has said. But we've done well by absorbing immigrants. Donald Trump says Mexicans are rapists and criminals, Mexican immigrants. What Donald Trump says he said that Judge Curiel was unqualified. And
I'd like to shift now to the threat of terrorism.
Instead, the terrorist threat has decreased in some ways because an Iranian nuclear weapons program. Threat to United States troops has been decreased in some ways because there's not 175,000 in a dangerous part of the world. There's only, let me tell you this, to beat terrorism, there's only one candidate who could do it, 9/11. She was there at the World Trade Center when they were still searching for victims and survivors. That seared onto her the need to beat terrorism. And she's got a plan to do it. She was part of the national security team that wiped out bin Laden. Here's her plan to defeat ISIL. First, we got to keep taking out their leaders on the battlefield. She was part of the team that got bin Laden, and she'll lead the team that will get Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the head of ISIS. Second, we got to disrupt financing networks. Third, disrupt their ability to recruit on the internet in their safe havens. But fourth, we also have to work with allies to share and surge intelligence. That's the Hillary row. The generals need all to be fired, and I know more than them. He wants to tear up alliances. NATO is obsolete and will only work together with Israel if they pay bigly. Third, he loves dictators. He's got kind of a personal Mount Rushmore. Vladimir Putin, Kim Jong-un, Muammar Gaddafi.
What the fuck?
And last and
What
most
the
dangerously,
fuck?
Donald Trump believes that the world will be safer if more nations have nuclear weapons. He said Saudi Arabia should get them, Japan should get them, Korea should get them. And when he was confronted with this and told, wait a minute, terrorists could get those, proliferation could lead to nuclear war, here's what Donald Trump said, and I quote, "Go ahead, folks, enjoy yourselves." I'd love to hear Governor Pence tell me what's so enjoyable or comical about nuclear war.
After traveling millions of miles as our Secretary of State, after being the architect of the foreign policy of this administration, America is less safe today than it was the day that Barack Obama became president of the United States. It's absolutely inarguable. We've weakened America's place in the world. It's been a combination of factors, but mostly it's been a lack of leadership. I will give you, and I was in Washington, D.C. on 9/11. I saw the clouds of smoke rise from the Pentagon.
I was in Virginia, where the Pentagon's.
I know you were. We all lived through that day as a nation. It was heartbreaking. And I want to give this president credit for bringing Osama bin Laden to justice. But the truth is, Osama bin Laden led al-Qaeda. Our primary threat today is ISIS. And because Hillary Clinton failed to renegotiate a status of forces agreement that would have allowed some American combat troops to remain in Iraq and secure the hard-fought gains the American soldier had won by 2009, ISIS was able to be literally conjured up out of the desert, and it's overrun vast areas that the American soldier had won in Operation Iraqi Freedom. My heart breaks for the likes of Lance Corporal Scott Zabowski. He fell in Fallujah in 2005. He fought hard through some of the most difficult days in Operation Iraqi Freedom, and he paid the ultimate sacrifice to defend our freedom and secure that nation. And that nation was secured in 2009. But because Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama failed to provide a status of forces agreement and leave sufficient troops in there. We are back at war. The president just ordered more troops on the ground. We are back at war in Iraq. And Scott Zabowski, whose mom would always come to Memorial Day events in Newcastle, Indiana to see me, and I'd always give her a hug and tell her we're never going to forget our son, and we never will. Scott Zabowski and the sacrifices the American soldier made were squandered in Iraq because this administration created a vacuum in which ISIS was able to grow. And a reference to the Iranian deal that Hillary Clinton initiated, $150 billion
Stopping
to
the
the
nuclear
radical
weapons
mullahs
program
in
without
Iran.
firing a shot.
You didn't stop the nuclear weapons
Yes, we did.
program.
Even the Israeli
you
military
essentially
says it's not.
guaranteed that Iran will someday become a nuclear power because there's no limitations once the period of time of the treaty comes off.
Governor Pence, Mr. Trump has proposed extreme vetting of immigrants from parts of the world that export terrorism. But that does not address many of the recent terrorist attacks in the United States, such as the Orlando nightclub massacre and the recent bombings in New York and New Jersey. Those were homegrown, committed by U.S. citizens and legal residents. What specific tools would you use to prevent those kinds of attacks?
Well, I think it's a great question, Elaine. But it really does begin with us reforming our immigration system and putting the interests, particularly the safety and security of the American people first. I mean, Donald Trump has called for extreme vetting.
Look at the debate already.
To this country so that we don't bring people into the
This man has totally shut
to our Bill of Rights freedom.
Tim Kaine ass up.
Also, Donald Trump and I
Unless
committed to
it's just a
suspending
coincidence he starts to interrupt him out of nowhere. But you have not heard him interrupt him. He has shut him down. That's how you know in debate.
Hillary Clinton and Tim Kaine want to increase the Syrian refugee program by 500.
There we go.
So, but first, let's make sure we're putting the safety and security of the American people first instead of Hillary Clinton expanding the Syrian
Or instead of you violating the Constitution, but by blocking people based on their national origin rather than whether they're dangerous.
That's absolutely false.
That's what the Seventh Circuit decided. Here's the difference.
The Seventh Circuit.
We have different views on refugee issues and on immigration. Hillary and I want to do enforcement based on are people dangerous. These guys say all Mexicans are bad. And with respect to refugees, we want to keep people out if they're dangerous. Donald Trump said keep them out if they're Muslim. Mike Pence put a program in place to keep them out if they're from Syria. And yesterday, an appellate court with 3 Republican judges struck down the Pence plan and said it was discriminatory.
And those
we should
judges,
focus upon danger, not upon discrimination.
And to your point, those judges said it was because there wasn't any evidence yet that ISIS had infiltrated the United States. Well, Germany just arrested 3 Syrian refugees.
Well, I know this is
ISIS,
but they told you there's a right way and a wrong way to do it.
But look, if you're going to be critical of me on that, that's fair game. I will tell you, after 2 Syrian refugees were involved in the attack in Paris that is called Paris's 9/11, as governor of the state of Indiana, I have no higher priority than the safety and security of the people of my state.
But Governor
so you
Pence,
bet I suspended that program.
But Governor Pence,
And I stand by that decision, and if I'm vice president of the United States...
Shut him down. Look at that. Shut him down.
Put the safety and security of the American people
Can we
first.
just be clear? Hillary and I will do immigration enforcement and will vet refugees based on whether they're...
You hear him just trying to throw this shit in there.
Based on discriminating against you from the country you come from or the religion.
So why ain't you vetting them now? Why ain't you vetting 100,000 refugees that's coming in now?
Elaine, the director of the FBI or Homeland Security said, we can't know for certain who these people are coming from Syria.
And we don't let them...
How? They don't have birth certificates or social security cards?
The FBI and Homeland Security said, we can't know for certain. You've got to err on the side of the safety and security of the American people, Senator. I understand
by trashing all Syrians or trashing all Muslims.
Senator Kaine, let me ask you this. Secretary Clinton has talked about an intelligence surge.
Yes.
What exactly would an intelligence surge look like, and how would that help identify terrorists with no operational connection to a foreign terrorist organization?
Intelligence surge is 2 things, Elaine. It's 2 things. It's first, dramatically expanding...
This is the first question that she has summed him up on.
But also, we've got some of the best intel and cyber employees in the world right here in the United States working for many of our private sector companies. So it involves increase on our own workforce, but striking great partnerships with some of our cyber and intel experts in the private sector so that he wants to, that NATO is obsolete. And well, he said NATO is obsolete. And nuclear weapons program, and that's what an intelligence surge means. Better skill and capacity, but also better alliance.
All right, I'd like to turn now to the tragedy in Syria.
Can I speak about the
250,000.
cybersecurity search at all?
You can have 30 seconds. Go ahead, quickly.
First, Donald Trump just spoke about this issue this week. We have got to bring together the best resources in this country to understand that cyber warfare is the new warfare of the asymmetrical enemies that we face in this country. And
get ready for the cutoff by Tim.
in the Senate to make sure that we resource that effort.
We will work together in whatever
Boom.
We have an intelligence survey, but I will also tell you that it's important in this moment to remember that Hillary Clinton had a private server in her home that had classified information.
Get ready for the interruption.
About drone strikes, emails from the President of the United States of America were on there. Her private server was.
Get ready, she's gonna cut him off.
I'd like to ask you about Syria,
We could put cybersecurity first if we just make sure the next Secretary of State doesn't
full
do that.
investigation.
Look at both of them trying to talk over him about that Clinton shit.
Take any additional step. You don't get to decide the rights and wrongs of this. We have to do that.
Governor,
Absolutely.
Because the
Gentlemen,
FBI
please.
did an investigation.
Gentlemen,
And they concluded that there was
Senator?
no reasonable prosecutor who would take it further.
Senator Kaine, Governor Pence, please. At what
The United States of America needs to begin to exercise strong leadership to protect the vulnerable citizens and over 100,000 children in Aleppo. Hillary Clinton's top priority when she became Secretary of State was the Russian reset. The Russian reset. After the Russian reset, the Russians invaded Ukraine and took over Crimea. And the small and bullying leader of Russia is now dictating terms to the United States to the point where all the United States of America, the greatest nation on earth, just withdraws from talks about a ceasefire while Vladimir Putin puts a missile defense system in Syria while he marshals the forces and begins. Look, we have got to begin to lean into this with strong, broad-shouldered American leadership. It begins by rebuilding our military. And the Russians and the Chinese have been making enormous investments in the military. We have the smallest Navy since 1916. We have the lowest number of troops since the end of the Second World War. We've got to work with the Congress and Donald Trump will to rebuild our military and project American strength in the world. But about Aleppo and about Syria, I truly do believe that what America ought to do right now is immediately establish safe zones so that families and vulnerable families with children can move out of those areas, work with our Arab partners real time right now to make that happen. And secondly, I just have to tell you that the provocations by Russia need to be met with American
This motherfucker has low energy like Jeb Bush. Not my man Superman right here.
And this barbaric attack on
I'm talking about
the United States of America should be
Kaine. This motherfucker look like Jeb Bush. Sorry for interrupting, guys.
Targets of the Assad regime to prevent them from this humanitarian crisis that is taking place in Aleppo. There's a broad range of other things that we ought to do as well. We ought to deploy a missile defense shield to the Czech Republic and Poland, which Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama pulled back on out of not wanting to offend the Russians back in 2009. We've just got to have American strength on the world stage. And when Donald Trump becomes president of the United States, the Russians and other countries in the world will know they're dealing with a strong American president.
Senator
Hillary and I also agree on northern Syria. Donald Trump between. I tell you what offends me. Governor Pence Governor Donald Trump is avoiding paying taxes. Young men and women went to Washington to get funds to rebuild her city and protect first responders, but Donald Trump was fighting a very different fight. It was a fight to avoid paying taxes so that he wouldn't support the fight against terror. He wouldn't support troops. He wouldn't support, this is important, will not support the troops, not support veterans, not in Syria. It's very important.
Governor Pence, you had mentioned no-fly zone. Where would you propose setting up a safe zone specifically? How would you keep it safe?
Well, first and foremost, in Russia that first appeared a few years ago with their move in Georgia, now their move into Crimea, now their move into the wider Middle East, and all the while, all we do is fold our arms and say we're not having talks anymore. To answer your question, we just need American strength. We need to marshal the resources of our allies in the region, and in the immediate, we need to act now to get people out of harm's way.
And exactly how would those safe zones work? How would they remain safe?
The safe zones would have to be as
Just like Israel.
There's already a framework for this that's been recognized by the international community. But the United States of America needs to be prepared to work with our allies in the region to create a route for safe passage, and then to protect people in those areas, including with a no-fly zone. But look, this is very tough stuff. I served on the Foreign Affairs Committee for a decade. I traveled in and out of that region for 10 years. I saw what the American soldier won in Operation Iraqi Freedom, and to see the weak and feckless leadership that Hillary Clinton was the architect of in the foreign policy of the Obama administration.
Let me come back and talk about.
Troubling to me. That
let me talk about the things that Governor Pence doesn't want to acknowledge, Elaine. He doesn't want to acknowledge.
Senator, that was even beneath you and Hillary Clinton, and that's pretty low.
But do you think we should have more nuclear weapons in the world will make us safer?
Senator,
That's what
Ronald Reagan also said nuclear war should never be fought because it can never be won. And the United States of America needs to make investments in modernizing our nuclear force for both deterrence
Donald Trump's claim that one nation should get
to our allies. But let me go back to this Iran thing. I mean, he keeps saying that that Hillary Clinton started the deal with the Iranians, prevented Iran from getting a nuclear weapon.
That's what the Israeli and the Joint Chiefs of Staff is saying right now.
Well, that's not what Israel thinks.
Gadi Eisenkot, you can go check it.
You wouldn't necessarily know that. I know you boycotted Prime Minister Netanyahu's speech.
No, I visited him in his office. You
boycotted the speech. The point is, what this so-called Iran deal did was essentially guarantee. I mean, when I was in Congress, I fought hard on a bipartisan basis with Republican and Democrat members to move forward the toughest sanctions, literally in the history of the United States.
And then Hillary used them.
We were bringing them to heel, but the goal was always that we would only lift the sanctions if Iran permanently renounced their nuclear ambitions.
Let me just mention
they have not. Elaine, let me finish a sentence. Mm-hmm. They have not renounced their nuclear ambitions, and when the deal's period runs out, there's no limitation on them obtaining weapons. That and the fact that they got $1.7 billion in a ransom payment.
We need to talk about Russia.
There you go. There you go, Pence.
I have said to Governor Pence, I can't imagine how you can defend your right to be tough on Russia. So let's start with Vladimir Putin as a great leader. Donald Trump and Russia. She went toe-to-toe with Russia as Secretary of State to do the New START agreement to reduce sanctions on Russia, that Russia's not going into the Ukraine. And Hillary Clinton has gone toe-to-toe with Russia to work out a deal since Richard Nixon
said that.
Senator, time is up. Governor.
Well, thanks. I just trying to keep up with the insult-driven campaign on the other side of the debate.
I'm just saying facts about your running mate.
Yeah. Well,
and I know you can't defend
Senator, please,
I'm happy to defend him, Senator. Don't put words in my mouth that I'm not defending him.
You're not.
I'm happy to defend him. Most of what you said is completely false. And the American people know that. This isn't the old days
Senator,
where you
please,
just say stuff
This
people believe it. Look,
You damn sure right, Pence. Thank you for that one, because we damn sure don't believe that shit.
Versus reality. Hillary Clinton said her number one priority was a reset with Russia. That reset resulted in the invasion of Ukraine. After they'd infiltrated with what are called little green men, Russian soldiers that were dressing up like Ukrainian dissidents. And then they moved all the way into Crimea, took over the Crimean Peninsula. And Donald Trump knew that happened. He basically was saying it's not going to happen again. The truth of the matter is that what you have in the rise of aggressive Russia, which has increased its influence in Iran, that's now because of this deal is on a pathway in the future to obtain a nuclear. The leading state sponsor of terror in the world, in Iran, now has a closer working relationship with Russia because of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama's foreign policy, and $150 billion and sanctions all being lifted. And then, of course, Syria. I mean, it really is extraordinary. Syria is imploding. You just asked a very thoughtful question about the disaster in Aleppo. ISIS is headquartered in Raqqa. ISIS from Raqqa has overrun vast areas that at great sacrifice the American soldier won in Operation Iraqi Freedom, and yet Senator Kaine still sits here, loyal soldier. I get all that. It's saying that the foreign policy of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama somehow made the world more secure. I mean, it really is astonishing that on the day that Iran released 4 American hostages, we delivered $400 million in cash as a ransom payment for Americans held by the radical mullahs in Tehran.
Governor, just today, Mr. Trump said, quote, Putin has no respect for
Why is she
anything
fact
and
checking?
no respect
Why is
for
she
Iran.
fact checking?
Why do you think he'll respect a Trump-Pence administration?
Strength. Plain and simple. Business. Donald Trump, that's nonsense. Donald Trump,
Donald Trump's son
leader,
says
who
that
is
the
going
Trump organization.
American
Please,
strength.
Senator, I'll give you a chance to respond.
We're going to rebuild our military. And let me say this whole Putin thing. Look, America is stronger than Russia. Our economy is 16 times larger than the Russian economy. America's political system is superior to the crony, corrupt capitalist system in Russia in every way. When Donald Trump and I observe that, as I've said, in Syria, in Iran, in Ukraine, that the small and bullying leader of Russia has been stronger on the world stage than this administration, that's stating painful facts. That's not an endorsement of Vladimir Putin. That's an indictment of the weak and feckless leadership of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama.
This is one where we can just kind of go to the tape on it. But Governor Pence said, inarguably, Vladimir Putin is a better leader than President Obama.
That is absolutely inaccurate.
And just say this, Governor.
If you just said better.
If you mistake leadership for dictatorship and you can't tell the difference, a country that's running its economy.
Yeah, this is the grade school thing again. Right.
If you can't tell the difference, you shouldn't be commander-in-chief.
Yeah.
And with Donald Trump's sons say that's a dictator.
And what would you do differently?
Vladimir Putin is a dictator. Anybody who thinks otherwise doesn't know Russian history and they don't know Vladimir Putin. Hillary Clinton knows exactly who this guy is. John McCain said, I look in his eyes and I see KGB, and Hillary kind of has that same feeling. So how do you deal with it? We do have to deal with Russia in a lot of different ways. There are areas where we can cooperate. So it was Hillary Clinton who worked with Russia on the New START treaty to reduce their nuclear weapons stockpile. It was Hillary Clinton that worked with Russia to get them engaged and prepared and done it, rather than somebody who goes around praising Vladimir Putin as a great leader.
All right, I'd like to ask now about North Korea, Iran, and the threat of nuclear weapons. North Korea recently conducted its 5th and most powerful nuclear test.
Right.
What specific steps would you take to prevent North Korea from developing a nuclear-armed missile capable of reaching the United States? Governor Pence.
Well, first we need to make a commitment to rebuild our military, including
charities in the world. It provides AIDS drugs to about 11.5 million people.